Hey, Brandon.
Tad.
Sorry,
Monday on a Tuesday. Yeah.
I'm having a day. Yeah, guys. Yeah, not my best today, but I did have a wonderful conversation with Bryant earlier for an upcoming podcast, so that was fun.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, and I'm working on publishing the second half of the lighting podcast with Dr. David Hawley, which I really enjoyed too. So
Yeah, I like that one
some
a
good
lot.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I got the under canopy lights installed. In my room. I just defoliated and sprayed. I was thinking of making a post about this, but I think we need to normalize proper pruning and training on indoor plants because I keep seeing on social media plants that look like outdoor plants in terms of being like a bush. And indoors we have a light source. It's typically just top light. We need to create a flat canopy to maximize our yield, especially for home growers. There's absolutely no reason not to trellis and create a good canopy for your plants. So I'm just going to throw that out there. And then every time I'm pruning, I'll probably do some sort of post on this too. All I can hear in the back of my head the whole time I'm pruning is light and air, light and air, light and air, because that's something that Don Marshall just drilled in my head. That's why one of the biggest reasons why we prune is for airflow and for better light penetration. And so I'm having a little trouble pruning on the under canopy side of my room because it's just so different with the light coming on from below too. So I'm learning.
Yeah, that's going to be a learning curve there as to what to take and what not to take.
Yeah. So it's good, but slowly getting through it.
Nice. Yeah, I just been super busy. I think folks that follow me on Instagram saw that super generous drop that Green Bodie sent to me of all those OG and Northern Lights crosses. And so I've been babysitting those, and I got all those wonderful sours and chems from fellow Deadhead, Gabby at Staten Island. Somebody you've known for decades. And
that is so funny, man. That still to this day cracks me up.
That's funny.
Yeah, because I've known Gabby forever. I had no idea he was such a legend in the community for genetics. He's just a grow shop owner when I was doing a lot of the compostee stuff living down in Portland. Always a cool dude. But yeah, he was kind of pretty humble and quiet about that side of his, life or history, I guess.
Yeah. I like that people like himself and like JJ at Top Dog and Francis Not So Dog, like all those guys kind of say they were in the right place at the right time. They're not pretending that they, trying to do something special, turned out special, and they're humble and grateful to have been on that part of the ride. And I like that vibe. And I'm very grateful that they're willing to share those genetics.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. I love that. I guess that mentality, because back when I first started growing too, like people would hook you up with genetics. If you knew them in person or had a relationship with them, people were pretty free about that stuff. Nothing was particularly proprietary at the time. Everyone was just like, hey, you're growing, I'm growing, cool. Let's work together on this. And that was awesome. I really appreciated that.
The little crew I was in, we all shared. So it'd be like, I'd be responsible for bubble gum and you'd be responsible for Northern Lights and somebody else is responsible for G13. And we're all running all of the genetics, but one person was responsible for making sure that they kept that one genetic alive. And so everybody had access. So if something happened, there's a bunch of backups, because that's the really heartbreaking thing. And I understand 100% why people want to monetize their genetics. And it's a lot of work,
Yeah. No, for sure.
But the heartbreaking thing is when we lose a cultivar, when something gets lost forever because, you know, like the roadkill skunk, or, you know, just, you know, I've got a garlic bud that I lost back in like maybe 2000, maybe 2001 at the latest. And man, there's not much I wouldn't do to get that one back. And I was a jerk about it. I was, you know, kind of an ass about that cut because a guy that I was working with gave the cut to somebody without talking to me about it, and it was my cut, you know, and so I wouldn't share it with anybody, and I ended up losing it, you know, and so here I am, boo-hoo, because I was being a jerk and wouldn't share. So shame on me.
Yeah, I had some pretty cool stuff back in the day that people gave me. I had, you know, Chem Dog, Northern Lights Haze. I had the one from Coot, Blue Orca, bunch of random stuff. Didn't really appreciate it at the time,
Right.
and yeah, it would have been really fun to have access to some of that again and see what it really was like.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited about all these Bodie OG and sour best shit ever crosses, and then, you know, all these, you know, Gabby was super cool, and I got a cut of Kim D that came to him from Greg, but I also got the Skunk VA cut, and yeah, so I appreciate all that.
Nice. All right. Well, we got a couple questions coming in, so I guess we can look at that here.
Thanks to everybody who's here. Appreciate everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces. So.
Thanks, Chad. Good to see you here too, man. Yeah, I've never been a genetics person. I'm slowly learning more about it, but I do have a lot of appreciation for people back in the industry. Like I met freaking now I can't think of his name. DJ Short. Sorry, back in the day, I think he wanted a soil mix. So I met with him and his manager at the time, and I didn't realize at the time how big of a deal blueberry was to people at this festival. People were coming up out of nowhere just to like shake his hand. It was like sitting next to a celebrity in this cafe. It was wild. So I realize people really do understand and appreciate genetics. And
I see Buzzy Funny in here, and he just hipped me to some flow seeds that I snatched up, and I've got a DJ Short blueberry cut, and I've also got blueberry seeds and flow seeds. So I pop those seeds. I want to compare the blueberry to the blueberry cut I've got, and then I definitely, if it's the legit flow, I love that one. I'd love to breed that into some of the terpier stuff that I love, but just the most motivational high of all time. And then I got headhunter seeds. My buddy Winston talked me into getting those because it's his favorite smoke of all time, and it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's, you know, passes out naps left and right. So I'm hoping to get that into some of the terpier stuff I've got that just doesn't really pack up.
Yeah, I want to try the flow from the way you talk about it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's like the housekeeper's dream. Like the house is
use that.
There won't be a spot of dust anywhere. It's not just that it gets you doing stuff, it makes you organize. It's very specific in what it does. It's real weird. I love it. And yeah, it's a wonderful high.
Right on. All right, well, let's get into the questions. So Garage Grower asked question, better to prune before flip or at the 3 week mark? I don't know that I've seen research either way. I know when you get a lot of stretch, you're going to just get a lot of growth happening in early flower there and a lot of hormonal changes. So I think both, but I think that week 3 prune is pretty important. Right now, I guess I don't even really look at the week in my grow. Like I'm week 1 right now, and I just pruned the crap out of them because I wanted to spray for thrips. So I wanted to remove as much leaf matter as possible, so I didn't have as much leaves to cover, and they don't have as many places to hide. So for me, I just did a week 1, and I'll probably do something again week 3. But I've trellised it as well. I was trying to pull up pictures, but I'm having issues with my computer today. So
I would say something slightly different. I think it's really important to do that big heavy defoliate at flip. The reason being, and we'll take Tad's under canopy lighting out of this conversation. I'm talking for folks that are just doing top lighting. If you do that heavy defoliate at flip, your plant's not going to put a lot of resources into flower set in places that you don't want to grow flower because it's going to be larvae. And so for top lighting, I think it's important. And then I would do it again, probably 2 weeks in. And then based off of your podcast, Tad, on herbivory, I have started doing kind of a regular defoliate. Just going in, I try to spend 15 minutes on every bed, and I'm just picking selective leaves and just trying to see. And I have to say, like, it's all anecdotal. I have no data at all, but I have a couple of cuts that last round I almost tossed them, and I'm so glad I didn't, because this round they are so loud. The San Diego OG cross from my buddy Craig, um, just raging this round, just amazing. So
you
that's
think it
another.
was due to your pruning?
No, I don't know what it is, but I have completely changed how I'm pruning, and I do feel like the room was really loud this time. So, it's totally anecdotal. It could have been the change in the weather versus, a hot round during the summer, or, who knows. But, if it smells good, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough research one way or another on defoliation, and it may depends. It may depend a lot on your genetics too, and a bunch of other factors. Which that's something Freedom Born brings up right after too.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take into account there, but yeah, what I will say pretty confidently though, most people under prune, myself included. Though I try every time I do it, I try to think and be more aggressive each time, and every time I think I overdo it, and I never do. So
Yeah. And
keep that in mind.
I'm very confident that you should do that defoliate at flip so that your plant doesn't put its resources to areas that you're going to end up pulling off anyway. So I do think it's important to do that.
Yeah, if a leaf is not getting much light, less than 200 ppfd, it's probably a nutrient sink rather than a nutrient source. So best to remove it. The only time I wouldn't would be if I knew I had a lot of pathogens in the air, and I didn't want to create a wound. That's the one thing to think about with all of that.
Yeah, with any defoliation, cross-contamination, wounding, it's important. But it's one of those, like you were just talking earlier, about how important it is for airflow. And so it's kind of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. I always hedge my bets on the side of I'll take leaves, and like I was super sick with COVID and I missed my room for 5 weeks. And my wife did an incredible job. She kept all my plants alive. I do have some PM this last round, or did. The round's coming down on Thursday. But I did do it just like almost schwazzed the room. Like I really defoliated heavily towards the end of this round just because I had the PM.
That makes sense. All right. So Puff the Magic Grandpa asks, assuming the soil is balanced at the start of the run and a 3-week veg, when or how much KiS flower mix, I assume you mean our bloom booster, would you apply for an 8 or 9 week flower cycle? Brandon.
How big is this pot?
Why don't you give us a couple scenarios?
Okay, so
let's do it. Do it in the 7 and do it in a bed or a 30 or something.
Okay, so our soil, typically KiS soil, and then our targets are designed to usually get somebody, and this is again cultivar dependent, room dependent. I always say this. I'm tired of hearing myself say it, but some people are running a 4-speed Sentra, some people are running a rocket ship, and so you're going to have different removal rates based on genetics and your individual room. So, assuming all things even, for a 7-gallon, with the bloom mix, I would probably add 8 to 9 week flower. I would add this probably into week 3, into week 4, and you could add, I mean, go for it, add a cup. You know, you could add a cup into week 3, week 4, and finish nicely. You know, and something to add to this. This is something I was talking to a customer about earlier today. Tad and I can sit up here and talk about our experience and our data and blah 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 all day. Nobody is more qualified than you, the grower, to read your plant, and that's the most crucial thing. You know, we have a very hard time sometimes helping growers remotely because we're not there, we're not looking at the plants. And so you as the grower reading your plants the most important thing. So if I say add a cup at the end of week 3 and you see an early nitrogen fade at week 5, then call us, email us, reach out to us, because we'll adjust our answer, you know, but there's nothing that we can do that beats your eyes. So I just want to say that. But so I'd say a cup at the end of week 3, week 4 would be plenty because the soil is already balanced and got everything it needs. So we're just giving it like a really nice hefty bump. And if you were in a bed and you were balanced, I would say, and I'm assuming it's a 4x4 at a 10 to 12 inch depth, about 100 gallons. You could probably go anywhere from, and again, I would probably do the same timing around the end of week 3, week 4 at the latest. You know, it's going to take a minute for some of this stuff to break down. Sulfates are pretty immediately available, but some of the other stuff has to cycle. So I kind of hedge my bets to be proactive at week 3. For 100 gallons and a 4x4, anywhere from 7 to 12 cups would be fine. So
right on.
A lot of parameters, but you know, Puff, if you want to reach out with more specifics, Brandon at KiSOrganics.com. Hit me up anytime.
Just throwing this comment up here because I find the same thing. Like I'll do a big heavy defoliation and then you'll, 2 weeks later, it looks like you never did anything. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. I feel like 5 days later, it looks like you were never in there.
Yeah. Dottie comments, need to check out the website for water test kits. The water, if you're I only throw this comment up because if you want to test your water, the best thing to do is send it into a lab. Any home, this goes for soil, water, everything like that. That's really the best advice I have. And so like with Logan, in the water tests are actually much less expensive than $99 off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure they're less than that.
Yeah. The heavy metals.
Even with, the heavy metals are $99. But the water tests are like 60 or something, I think. And you get an analysis with it too. And you just take a sample of your water pre any filters or what's going to be going on your plants. So like here at my house, I did a water test straight out of my hose tap to see what that looked like. I let it run for a little while, filled a water bottle, sealed it up, sent it in, and got that pretty quickly. So yeah, it's a great option. You should absolutely check your water.
I always tell people to don't drink off of that bottle. Something you ate or just salt from your mouth could contaminate that. So pour it into a glass. We don't want you to waste the water, but pour it into a glass, rinse that bottle with with the water at your hose end multiple times, so you just get an accurate test.
Yeah. Certain Thrips species, as I understand it, do lay eggs in the leaf tissue. There was some research with Sufoil X that showed it actually like clogged. They put a little hole up, an oxygen hole, more or less, to simplify it, in through the leaf. And so, so you could have a plant that looks clean, and then thrips will they'll come out of the leaf itself. So that's why we do dips and sprays and all this stuff to try and kill them, or beneficials. So I did 3 sprays, followed that up with some beneficials. I thought I'd gotten all of them, and then I went back in there and really scouting, like even just today, and I found a couple of live thrips on the leaves. So I did another spray today and a big defol, and I'm just going to keep on it. But they're very persistent, and different species can also drop down into the soil. They're pretty amazing creatures. So
low damage, super persistent. I've been having good luck with the EpiShield.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's not the worst pest to have. For me, it's more aesthetic. Like if I'm going to post my grow online because people want to see it, it has to look good, and I don't want thrips damage on there if I can avoid it. But it is what it is. So,
and I test my genetics regularly just to make sure I don't have hop latent or anything sneaking in the door. And so, like whitefly, thrips, like they're really not going to tank your grow, but they can vector pathogens, and so that is one reason to stay on top of them. But thrips, you just have to stay consistent. Definitely get rid of cover crops, mulch, or you'll never get rid of them.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna spray. It's first week of flower, so I'm gonna spray, and then I'm done, because I don't want to keep spraying into flower. So keep that in mind too. I guess timing is important. Brandon, why do you use paper bags and boxes both? I don't know what this is in reference to, but I thought maybe you would.
For curing. I much
Okay.
prefer I prefer to cure in paper bags or paper boxes, cardboard boxes, because there's some gas exchange there. If I do that in a turkey bag, like, yes, I am pulling moisture from the inside of that bud, because it's a closed system. And so I'm pulling moisture from the inside out to the bud, so it's more homogeneous, and that's good for the cure and that kind of thing in a turkey bag. The same thing happens in a paper bag or a cardboard box, a little more slowly, but I'm at less risk for pathogens. And considering I was in a swamp for 25 years in South Carolina, and I'm in a different, much cooler kind of swamp out here, but it's a swamp. And so I'm very pathogen fearful. And so it's a little safety measure.
So I want to throw this comment up from Crippled Cannabis Cowboy. Since Chad was in the chat as well, we do have a Westport blend soil for his genetics. Cubic foot bags shipping can be really high, so we're trying to work on some other solutions there. But we do have it available, and you can reuse the soil. So I just want to throw that out there. Just quick plug for us and Chad. And then I just thought this was awesome. But Crippled Cannabis Cowboy has been in the chat in a lot of these lives, and that's really cool that he's raised over 15 grand to treat MS. We need it right now with less funding for sciences and things like that. So much appreciated. Hopefully we can get some more solutions there for what you're battling. That's awesome. So very cool, man.
Yeah.
Question for KiS biochar soil: is a test needed after the first run, or would the nutrient pack be sufficient for the second and test after that? You want to take this one, Brandon?
Yeah. So I would definitely, if I was a home grower and wasn't farming data like I am, I would run KiS right out of the bag for a run, and then I could run nutrient pack maybe 1 or 2 rounds after that, and then test again. So I do think it's a good idea. For a facility, test every round. It's easy to justify, and it at scale, it can save you so much heartache. At home, it can be expensive, and so I recommend home growers only test every like 3rd round, because we still want to make sure your pH isn't drifting. We want to make sure sodium and chlorides aren't building up, and then there's other weird things that can get out of balance. But for the most part, you should be able to get 2 or 3 rounds at home without any issues, and then it would be good to test after that.
Yeah, I would say if your plants look good after the first run, you're happy with your yield, how everything went, you're good to go. Let it run. If you're not happy with how it turned out, get a soil test, and then we can balance it better and get you back to where you want to be. I'm trying to find a picture here of what happened to me. So I got myself in trouble. I'm going to tattle on myself here. I took soil that had been sitting around outside for 2 years in giant totes in Washington State, Western Washington specifically, where it rains a lot. But it was in those big mesh totes, and I thought, okay, it's probably pretty fertile. And I planted my plants, and they looked fine, but I did not test. Turns out, a lot of the nutrients had leached, and so this is what my plants ended up looking like. And I actually got a tissue test to confirm that, yeah, we just ran out of fertility here. So this was my mistake. So after this run, I tested, and let me see if I have some pictures here of my second run, if I can figure out how the heck to make this one go away while I find the other one, so I'm not just showing random photos of who knows what. Actually, I want to show you this here. Here's a very unhappy, nutrient deficient plant that is praying. Just want to throw that up there. So it can happen. Praying isn't always happy. But I'm getting off topic here. So let me go back and find one from the next run that I did, just to show you guys the difference in fertility here with soil testing. Because it really does make a difference. So this is the next run. If anything, I might have a little too much fertility, but I was happy with how it turned out. So this was the next run in the room. Plants got too big. You can see I had to prune underneath a lot more than I wanted to, but I had to get the plants healthy before flipping.
That was a tasty room.
Yeah, it worked. It turned out great. And so that was a soil test. Now I could have just kept going with a nutrient pack and amended at a higher rate, and I might have gotten there too, but I wanted to have more confidence that I knew how my plants were going to finish. So that's why I did the soil test. So this run that I'm on right now, I did not soil test. And I'm going to let it ride and see. So far plants look good. And if I have to, correct somewhere mid-cycle because I didn't soil test, I will do that. But so far so good. Plants look good so far. I was trying to pull out some pictures of them, but my computer's really acting up today, unfortunately. All right, back to the question. Sorry, guys. Do you use diatomaceous earth at all for dusting? Brandon.
So I just had a really long conversation with somebody last week about DE, and I use DE, diatomaceous earth. I use it outside in my seed shed quite a bit, just because it's easy for thrips, aphids, spider mites to get in there. So all through veg, I dust in there. It is a pretty decent source of silica. So it's something you can add to your soil. Because of that, you want to use proper PPE when you're handling it. You don't want to be breathing DE, and you don't want it in your eyes. So goggles and a mask are good for DE.
You got to wear goggles, guys. I made that mistake. I had bloodshot eyes for like a week because
I always do.
Yeah. not the good bloodshot eyes, right. Man. Yeah, it was bad because I had a feed shed with dust mites and I wanted to be organic. So after moving, no joke, I'm not even kidding, 60,000 pounds of feed by myself. I was up till 3 a.m. My arms were literally my muscles were cramping. It was awful. I sprayed, I blew the whole thing out. And then I dusted everything with DE. And then this was stupid. I took a blower with a respirator, so I wasn't a complete idiot, and just started blowing all of it out of this 40-foot container that all the feed was in, that we stored all our feed in. And a lot of it got up into my eyes. I didn't even realize it until the next day. And I woke up and my eyes were they were messed up. So
I've done sulfur with the blower, which is even worse, but I wore a respirator and goggles. I'm uptight. But
yeah, the goggles now are a must-have, so people can learn from my mistake. Yeah, it's always good with any. I think that's just good advice in general with any IPM product. You have to read the MSDS and understand like what the requirements are for PPE. And when in doubt, just wear the respirator. Like I just sprayed Suff Oil X in my room today. Do I think it's like particularly harmful? Probably not, but I still wore a respirator. I just think it's good. And I washed my hands when I was done. Just basic stuff.
atomized oils is not great for your lungs. Like if you're going to do anything bad to your lungs, let it be weed.
Yeah, I guess I've just done so much shit over the years of like, with construction, like being around like drywall and dust and dirt, and like I wish I'd been more careful of those things growing up. But
one more thing about DE: as soon as it gets wet, it's totally useless for pest prevention. And so, if you sprinkle it on your soil, it's going to get wet and it's not going to be useful. So, like my wife uses it. She spreads it at the thresholds, like outside the doors, so that ants and things don't crawl in the house. If anybody living in South Carolina, palmetto bugs, which is just a really nice way of saying giant cockroaches that will carry off your children, are a real problem there. And so we would dust around the doors and windows with DE so they wouldn't crawl in the house.
All right, Green Elder says, "Oh, sorry."
Barrier. No, I was just saying it's a good barrier, but it's not good in your soil as far as doing anything for bugs.
Silica, though, still has benefit.
Yeah.
All right. I keep hearing you can't tell that you defoliate at day 21 after you do it at flip. So does the plant use the energy to replace all the leaves or just the ones most important to the plant?
It replaces the leaves, but it's going to replace it in a zone instead of down here where it can't, by the end of flower, there's no light. It's going to be, if you prune it to here, everything that comes back is going to be, if you do it properly, will be in the zone where you're getting proper PPFD, if that makes sense.
I also like to remove large fan leaves that are covering bud sites too. It's a dance because you need the leaves to get photosynthetic energy into the plant, but then you also need to remove the leaves to essentially make sure that the plant's putting the energy into the areas of the plant that you want it to. So
watering, dry cure, and pruning are those three areas where the art and the science meet really hard in cultivation, and it's kind of an experience thing.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we do a different live or a YouTube video on this, Brandon, because this is a pretty deep question and probably more that we can get into now. But we're pretty excited because the products that we have access to now through BioWorks and BioSafe and some of these like pretty major ag companies, like these products are used everywhere in ornamental horticulture, in agriculture. They're just phenomenally effective products that have very good research around them. So, and this is, and I'm not picking on Lost Coast Therapy. It's just the first thing that popped into my head, or Dr. Zymes. People talk about how those products work, and they may work, but they don't have the same efficacy research that you would get with something like Suff Oil X, for example. And so that's why we lean towards those products. It's not to say that those other ones are bad, but there isn't the same research around the formulation and phytotoxicity and efficacy data that exists with some of these, commercial products that are found in multiple industries. So yeah, you can always reach out to us if you're dealing with a specific issue, and we can give you some recommendations to look at for those things. But yeah, like Bavaria is not Bavaria, for example. You really have to look at the formulation and the strain itself. It makes a big difference. Oh, I figured you'd add something. All right. Aphids suck. Yes. One of the ways with cannabis aphid that I've had some people have success is by overheating their rooms. So I just want to throw that out there. one thing to consider if you are dealing with cannabis aphid and have the ability to do so.
Aphids have like the best biological reproductive strategy to be born pregnant, you know, you're born and you're pregnant and your babies are pregnant. It's pretty hard to break that cycle. So most folks when people do greenhouses and outdoor for aphids, like it's really important to keep a calendar so that you can do something 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you expect, monitor your weather and that kind of stuff, because you'll get to where you can predict infestations to show up, and being proactive, because Tad and I say this all the time, but especially in flower, you're really limited to beneficials, and beneficials are not very good as a curative. They're much, much more effective as a prophylactic approach. So keep a calendar on bugs.
Aphids are also color morphs, so color is not a good way of identifying aphids, which I think is really interesting. And they actually have the ability to go from being, I don't remember the correct term, but they can essentially reproduce with each other, and then they can actually reproduce by themselves.
Yeah, asexual.
So they have that ability to just evolve and change their reproductive system depending on what the environment looks like. So they're phenomenally successful evolutionary creatures. So outside of the fact they eat our plants, they're pretty cool things. And many of them are co-evolved species specific with certain plants. Like I had, now I'm blanking on the flower. I had lupins in my garden this year, and I had aphids I had a specific lupin aphid that just was on that flower. So it wasn't bothering my tomatoes, my cucumbers, my beans that were all touching it. Literally just wanted that one plant. And there's ones for foxgloves and other things. So cannabis aphid is like that.
I had them on rhubarb, and that was it. Nothing else in the entire garden.
I've never seen them on rhubarb. That's so interesting.
I hadn't either. I turned over one of those giant big leaves, and it was just covered in aphids.
Yeah. So they're pretty interesting, and they are suckers. Yeah. Cause they do suck the sap out of the plant. Moldy flower because of thrips. I haven't seen that, honestly. The rasping damage they do, I haven't seen lead to mold, but maybe it could from the wound they create. I'm more inclined to think maybe you just got some botrytis at the same time you had thrips, or maybe the plants were just so stressed that it was easier for the mold to get in there. Because I typically feel like you can get a crop to finish with thrips.
The only thing I could see is maybe if you had really high numbers, if you've got a bunch of frass, if they're pooping all over your flowers, then I can see that being a thing. But like Tad said, it's probably, highly likely, or possible at least, that it's cofactors or covariables. But, if you've got high numbers, you could get mold just from the poop. Because you'll see, we're always trying to beg people to scout and scope on a regular basis so you don't get caught off guard. Because a lot of times by the time you see the bugs, there's a huge infestation. So we're looking for damage. And with thrips, if you turn the leaf in the light, you'll see this silver flashing, and it's from them doing that rasping across the top of the leaf. Two-spot spider mites have that real distinctive stippling, and so you're looking for the damage. But if thrips get really high, you'll start to see just below the damage, you'll see a bunch of little black specks, and that's them pooping all over your plant.
Gross. So yeah, not saying you're wrong here. I just wanted to comment on it as I saw your comment. So I just worked my way, for those of you that are new to the show, I just worked my way down the comments. So if you have conversation happening further down in the chat, I just haven't gotten to it yet. And sometimes I'll just see the word question and I'll throw it on the top here without even having read it. So yeah. So like Holy Toledo asks, do you guys offer a soil test or know someone that does that? We do. Yeah, we have soil testing on our website through Logan Labs, and we also offer it with and without analysis. If you want, if you're not comfortable reading it for your target crop, that's something that we can help with too. Most specifically for cannabis. If you were growing a very specific other crop, we may not have targets for it. But yeah, we could look at it. And then if you make your own, a lot of people will do that and then send it in for a test, and we can give you an idea of what changes you might want to make prior to using it. I will say a lot of times when people make their own soil, they put too much in. So less is more. All right, let's keep going here. For us, there is a store locator. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about on our website. We are working on getting more stores on board as well as some other locations. So that is actively, hopefully, updating soon. But we do have some locations all over the U.S. Not a ton, but because we're a pretty small company, but more in Washington, Oregon, Portland area. But yeah, reach out too. Or if you have a store that you think would be interesting for us to get into, let us know. Appreciate it. Oh, I like this question, Cheddar Bob. What are your thoughts on the synganics movement? I think it's kind of silly but to each their own. Brandon, you want to go first?
Sure. I know we both have opinions on this. I'm not dogmatic. My target is sustainability. I love being an organic grower. It's endlessly fascinating to me and has all kinds of just endless wormholes and rabbit holes to go down. And I love organic growing. It's so much more fun to me. With that said, I also think that, and this is subjective, but I'm not the only person that feels this way, but I definitely feel that organic cannabis is superior to salt grown cannabis, at least in the majority. I'm not going to say that there's not some salt guys out there who really know their craft, but by and large, I personally prefer organic cannabis. So with that said, if I was going to open a facility tomorrow, I would probably do my veg side with salts, just because as this industry continues to kind of implode and prices continue to fall through the bottom, like Collective, their mother room was so cool. All those beds in that huge room full of moms, but I could do that in a pretty small footprint with a much lower electric bill if I went salts for my veg room. And I know that's not synganic, that's splitting the grow up. And then I would get my biologically induced and those sorts of, benefits that I'm looking to get from organic in the flower. So I do think that when we look at, like the giant pumpkin growers and the people who are growing for mass, synganics, the data say synganics works, running a very, we work with a farm, a huge farm that does this. They use our soil and they use biology, but they also run a very low EC salt, JR Peters, a nice safe salt throughout the run. And that way they just don't run into any hiccups. But they, again, kind of like myself, they say that because of the biology, they're getting a better finished flower. And so I don't have anything against synganics at all. I would like to, we know that a little bit of salt's not going to kill off all your biology. We know that that's not true. And so if that, let's say you're in a really tight state, you're in South Dakota or New Jersey or Vermont and you've got to pass arsenic tests. Organics is difficult. You're going to have to really work hard to do that. And there's a lot of things you can do, but alternatively, you could just put your phosphorus in with salt and pass and still get the benefits of biology. And so it's going to come down to an individual case by case as to whether I would recommend it or not. I do it? No, I don't see any need to do it. I manage my fertility proactively, and we've got good targets, and it's pretty rinse and repeat. But I can definitely see, like again, like that farm, that's an outdoor farm. they can't control how much it rains. So if they get a ton of rain, that'd be a really easy way to get fertility back into those big beds. I would be more likely to do it with fish hydrolysate or something like that. But on scale with acreage, you can't beat the cost point of J.R. Peters. So it really would have to come down to a case by case thing. But for me, I'm not dogmatic. One, because if you are dogmatic, you're done learning, and that's definitely not where I want to be. And then two, I really just want sustainability. I've got kids. I want them to be on a planet after I'm gone that they can enjoy.
Yeah, I take a slightly different approach to it. So a decade ago, if you had asked me this, or maybe 2 decades ago, I would have said only organics, and I would have been very strict about it. I've learned a lot. You brought up the giant vegetable thing. With giant pumpkins, because I've grown them. I know people pretty closely in that industry. 15 years ago, it was all, they were topping out at about 1,000 pounds. That was the world record. And then they started incorporating mycorrhizal fungi into their mix, and they started using some biologicals and compost. And then they started using more organic practices and sort of a combination of salts and, the synganic approach that we're talking about here. And through that and good genetic breeding, now they're up over 2,500 pounds now, I think. And so I do believe that that the organics gives you, in the case of cannabis, it gives you better secondary metabolite production, and it gives you more of a buffer. You can have a bigger pH range. You can have, you can be a little bit off in your fertility and still get a really good product. Whereas with organics or with, mineral salts, you really have to keep things pretty dialed. It's easy, but you have to pay attention a little bit closer. I approach it more now from the perspective of, like Brandon said, sustainability, because everything now is processed. So if you're getting fish meal, fish bone meal, blood meal, feather meal, alfalfa meal, whatever product you're applying to your garden, unless you're making it yourself and growing it yourself, it had a fossil fuel cost. It had a carbon tax. Not only is there fossil fuel cost to get it to you, but there's a processing cost to it. And all of these things are all related as well. So like, if you want to use that alfalfa meal, well, it was probably grown, and fertilized using chicken manure or cow manure, horse manure. And so all of these things are like integrated and related. On the synthetic side of things, if we talk about mineral salts, that's just another form of processing in some ways. It's a refinement of minerals, or chelation done chemically by humans. It's not, I guess, in my head, really all that different now that I've gotten older and learned more about the chemistry. And the standards that we have for organic production are not very useful. If we talk about the National Organic Program, it would say, okay, we can use fish hydrolysate, which is stabilized with phosphoric acid. That's fine. We can use seaweed extract powder that's stabilized using is it potassium chloride or
Yep.
I don't remember. So basically, these things have chemical, mineral salt things in there that are fine. And yet when I made my label for my soil mix, I could not put that I had 100% organic inputs because I had rock dust in there, which is technically inorganic, doesn't contain carbon. So it's a lot of it is, to me, is bureaucracy. And I've said this as well on the podcast or talking to people. I could absolutely make the argument of mineral salts being more sustainable than, say, shipping guanos over from the Philippines, for example. The fossil fuel cost, the damage to the environment and the ecology, the health risks associated with the people that are harvesting it. It's nuanced. So I personally don't choose to grow synganically, but like I'll recommend people use Eggsil 16H, which is approved by NOP standards under certain conditions as a pesticide, but not as a soil amendment. But it's absolutely, essentially a mineral salt, or not a mineral salt, but a synthetically human created product. So I guess it is a mineral salt as I say that. Anyway, point of the story being, it's complicated. If we want to maximize yield, sure, I think synthetics are a good option, or synganics is a good option. If we want to maximize flavor, secondary metabolite production, I think that's where organics and biology really shines. It's just another tool in the toolbox if you open it up to synganics versus being, hardcore organic. I find I don't need those things, but I'm certainly not going to fault anyone that wants to use those things too. And I also see it as a gateway into organics. Like if I can get people talking to me that are, salt growers, and maybe starting to incorporate in some organics, and then they start getting better results, hopefully they'll switch over or begin to consider this methodology and give more validity to organics. So, all right, that was a long answer for a simple question.
Right.
Sorry, I'm going down and finding more questions here, but it's a lot of comments. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm not able to scroll down for some reason today, but I saw Not Me See, or somebody put up a thing that said synganics is a way for consultants to keep consulting. And
Yeah.
I love that comment because it is true to some extent. And I think that that's a very astute observation, and everyone should be aware. Maybe skeptical is the right word, but when you start seeing a ton of stuff, it could be that there's research. It could be that it's the newest marketing plan, So I like that comment.
All right, I'm going to throw this one up here. I don't know that I can answer it, though. I would have to look up that particular mite. I don't know all the names of all the mites off the top of my head, if I'm being honest. So if you're not seeing any plant damage, maybe you could remove them mechanically with like a water spray, even
Vacuum.
or vacuum. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that one.
I'll have to look it up later, and or send me an email.
It's obviously problematic if you're getting insects stuck in your buds, though. So I would want to try to remove them or put something on the stem, whether it's tanglefoot, two-sided tape, Vaseline, something to keep if they're crawling up the plant and getting stuck in your buds. I'd try to put some sort of barrier there.
All right, I'm seeing here if there's any other questions. I see a lot of conversations going back and forth. I will throw this comment up here. That's wild, because growing giant pumpkins is labor of love. You're not going to make money on it. Don't quit your day job. Most people don't.
What do you do with that? They paid $14,000 for it, but like you can't.
Oh, businesses will sometimes buy them. Sometimes there's a prize from the festival itself, though not numbers like this. You're not going to win that. Some people will buy some of the giant vegetables.
I did see another comment on the synganic conversation saying to use the carbon-based liquids, and I'm not a fan of the science on the carbon-based liquids. One, and I know Tad agrees with me on this, we don't want to be shipping liquids and buying water that we've got. But plants are incredibly efficient at accumulating carbon through their stomata. And so you don't have to provide additional carbon for your plant. So I feel like it's kind of reinventing the wheel or relabeling the wheel. It seems like an inefficient delivery system to me, but to each their own. If it's working for you, great. But I would say,
almost everything's carbon based already. So I don't know that that's a very meaningful term. But I do hear it a lot with organics, also amino acids. Sorry, I got distracted. So we're streaming using a thing called Restream. You might be stoned, but this is alive. This is happening right now. So if me talking about you posting that is really getting in your head, I just appreciate that. So I had to throw it up there.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the questions. Root aphids on cocoa. What can I do, Brandon?
Root aphids. So root aphids
burn down your entire house. No,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
burn down your whole neighborhood. So root aphids and russets are two of the hardest ones, and it's because they're not visible. Russets because they're so small. Root aphids because they're in the root zone where you don't see them until there's this huge population. We've already discussed how aggressive the reproductive system of aphids can be, and they have multiple ways of reproducing. And so by the time you've got crawlers and flyers coming up out of the soil, you've got a serious problem. So the first thing you do is you don't pass around hippie cooties to each other. So you make sure that wherever you're getting your cuttings, that they don't have root aphids. And so if you want to quarantine plants, if you want to, treat plants prophylactically and keep them in a separate space, do something like that. So that exclusion is number one. Root aphids aren't just going to show up magically. They're going to come in with clones. And so once you have them, Bovaria is one of your absolute best weapons. There's a couple of different forms. There's like a time release granular that's available in Canada. I think it's available in the US now. I use a lot of Botanigard WP wettable powder. You could use the max one time because it's got pyrethrins in it. It'd be a really good knockdown. But you don't want to use that repeatedly because then you'll have pyrethrin resistant root aphids, and then you're going to have to burn down the whole neighborhood. And then I would just continue to do, weekly drenches with high rates of Bovaria. I would do a ton of SF nematodes. They are not affected by the Bovaria, and they'll go after the root aphids in the different stages. But it's not, I can remember 10 years ago, even maybe 8 years ago, where if you had root aphids, that was the recommendation. Just burn it down and start over. And it's not the death sentence that we used to think it was. We've got a better understanding of how to deal with them. But, for spraying veg plants, the EpiShield is extremely effective on aphids above the root zone. You never want to put oil into the soil. You'll suffocate roots and potentially kill plants. But yeah, Bovaria, and the Steiner Feltiae nematodes.
Here is some root aphids that were on a commercial crop. And what was happening, they were all dying. They thought maybe it was something they were applying. But it turns out what was really going on is they were flying up into the lights and dying and then falling back down onto their crop. So, I just wanted to share. I thought that was interesting. Suzanne figured that out, Bug Lady, for us because I didn't know the answer to that. But yeah, they're a really tough one. Best avoided by good practices like Brandon listed.
And you can bake a room. Like if you've got a greenhouse, like you can, in South Carolina in the middle of summer, you can close that sucker up airtight and get those temps as high as you can for multiple days in a row. That'll help you. And then this goes back to what we were talking about scouting and looking at your plants and reading your plants. If you've got plants that you're feeding and they've got what they need and they look horrible, then pull a plant. Look at your root zone.
I was just going to share weird powdery mildew because I was in my photos here. This is one that I didn't know what it was because it looked like almost like bird poop the way it was scattered and kind of random on the plant. I did send it off to pathology lab, and Dr. Nicole Gauthier looked at it and said, oh, immediately this was PM. But I was having trouble telling that myself because it was just such a weird looking. It's not how I typically see PM on cannabis. So
Right.
I just wanted to share that because I was looking through some photos.
There's
I know
a
we were talking about aphids. I was going to
there's a
show some aphid
yeah,
pictures
there's a
too here.
follow-up question from Mao Cantu, I think. I used Bovaria, but I think I need some kind of
Oh, there you
oil,
go.
to blend it. I would not put oil into the soil. You could rotate with Met 52. That's something that you could use against root aphids as well. So you could do like Bovaria this week and then Met 52 the next week and go back and forth. The Bovaria stores better and is easier.
You got to get good Bavaria too. So like Principal or Botanicard are the two brands that I would recommend. We can source both of those now as well as the Met 52.
And use a ton of it. Like use a ton of it. Like you're trying to kill a incredibly productive insect, that has multiple stages spread out through your entire soil volume, corner to corner. And so you need to really make sure you get all, you can't leave like a dry corner. You can't, like you need to use, high rates and make sure you're getting good coverage and keep your foot on the gas. Just assume you've got them forever after that. Just round after round, stay on that Bovaria.
I just want to show another photo of this PM because this is so weird to me. This is not what I think of when I think of powdery mildew, how it's just in a few spots, not all over the plant. I thought maybe it had something to do with leaf hoppers that were somehow spreading something. So yeah, the stuff doesn't always look the way you think it's going to look. We're talking about aphids. If anyone, I assume everyone knows what aphids look like, but I'm just going to show you a picture. This is what my outdoor plants look like consistently if I try to grow outdoors.
The dead giveaway on aphids is because they have a kind of a range of morphologies of how they look, and a lot of them look very similar, but they have little tailpipes on their butts called cornicles.
Cornicles, yeah, down here. You can't see them in this photo. I have better photos of aphids, but not not immediately accessible. I do have some thrips pictures. I could probably show you guys thrips if you want to see thrips too. Since
You
we're
should
kind
have
of
some
talking
really
plant.
good thrips pictures right now.
Let me see here. Yeah, I took some the other day. All right, here we go. I can share this screen without getting in too much trouble here. So here's some different pictures of photos I took recently. Here you go.
Back on the powdery mildew conversation, just really quickly. Just
Yeah.
passing that tip from Dr. Bruce Bugbee. What was it? 1 gram per liter of Vancil 10, which is Willastonite. Apparently very effective against PM. So I got some Willastonite. I'm adding it to my soil for this next round. That way I can monitor and see if it moves the pH at all this round, and see what happens.
These are dead thrips.
That's nice to see. Little
Yeah. The first two I showed while Brandon was talking are alive. This guy was alive and happy. You can see them with your naked eyes if you look really closely, if you have decent vision. They'll just look like a little clear speck. And then this was after I applied beneficials. You can see them cruising around. These are the Swirsky mites cruising around looking for food. So, yeah,
Larry
there's another dead one right there.
Said molting dandruff is the first sign of aphids usually. Another thing to look for is honeydew and or ants. I can't remember who said it to me. It might have been Don Marshall, but somebody said they're not up, if you see ants on your fruit trees, they're not up there for the view. You've got aphids. There's something that's excreting honeydew that they're up there for. And so that's another thing. So if you see ants show up in your grow room all of a sudden, start looking for aphids.
Yep. I think that's it for. Yeah, I think that's it for photos and questions today. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and let's do this again next Tuesday. That was fun.
Thank you, guys.